So we're going to start out with some fundamental things about the wrist. So one of the most common things I hear from teaching yoga classes is that a lot of yogis have wrist pains. I was definitely the same way. It might take a while to get used to this. It might take a while for the wrist to feel comfortable while bearing weight. But if you do these things every single day, for sure you're going to see an improvement. So one thing to notice, you've probably heard this before if you practiced yoga class before, is that when we have weight on our hands, we want to bear our weight onto the index knuckle. So when we naturally place our hands on the ground, what's going to happen, you can try it for yourself right now, is that the weight is naturally going to cave to the outer edges of the hand. So if you place your hands on the ground, you'll probably feel the index knuckle start to lift away from the mat. So you want to make sure that this point of contact is always made between the floor or your mat and the index knuckle, because as we do this, we engage the muscles through the wrist and the forearm, and at the same time, there's a joint on the inside of our hands that will bear the body weight. So just a little thing to be conscious of every time you're placing weight on the hands, check in, is your pointer finger lifting away from the mat, not the finger itself, but instead the knuckle pad? If it is, press it back down. It's going to be hard, but I'll keep continuously cueing you to check back in this video. So take your hands on the ground. We're going to take a moment to just warm up through the wrists. So right away, the best cue that I've heard in my yoga practice through many years and different teachers to get this engagement is to place your fingers on the mat. And you don't have to spread them really wide, but spread them relatively wide. And at the same time as you're spreading them wide, think like you're gripping a baseball or an object in between your hands as hard as you can. So of course, the ground's in the way, so you're not going to be able to make a tight fist. But as the hands are making contact with the ground, you're trying to make a really tight fist at the same time, and you should feel a lot of engagement. So notice how when you do this, the index knuckles are firmly rooted into the ground. Keep that. And just begin to sway from front to back a little bit. So loading your wrists, shifting forward, back, forward, back. Let's continue. So now take your hands and flip them towards either side of the room, and same concept. Grip that floor in between your hands as hard as you can, spread the fingers, and now make big circular motions with your body. So we're aiming to load the wrists in different angles as we circle all the way around one direction. And switch directions. I notice if there's any certain points, as we make this circular motion, that you feel like you want to take your weight off the hands. So I know it might be tempting to do so, but really try to keep through those areas, your hands pressing into the ground, the weight pouring into those areas to really get into all areas of the wrists. So now take your hands, I'll come back to center first, take your fingertips, flip them back towards your knees. If doing them two at a time is a little bit too much, you can do one hand at a time. But as we do this, start to lean back, and you probably won't have to lean back hard to feel a nice stretch, but we want to feel it all the way from the fingertips up the forearms. Maybe the heel of the hand will start to lift a little bit. Come all the way back towards center. Flip your hands into a regular position, so facing the front of the space. Keep your left palm planted on the ground. Take your right wrist, bend it in, and then take the top of your hand to the ground, and just bear a little bit of weight here. So it took me a long time for this one to actually feel comfortable, so if it feels really painful right now, don't put so much weight on it, but put enough that you're feeling a sensation, because over time this is going to be a really nice counter to all the yoga, all the things you do on your hands with the wrist in the other direction. Okay, take the right hand back down towards the mat, take the left hand, flip the palm in, place the back of the hand towards the ground, and same thing, just bearing a little bit of weight, feeling nice, maybe. Great, take your hand back into a regular position. So sit back on your heels. So those are some great exercises to do to strengthen, to build, flexibility into the wrist, mobility into the wrist. We're going to do a little bit. So let's shake out your wrist for a few times first. We're going to do a little bit now to strengthen through the wrist. So this is just as important, if not more important, than doing what we just did. Take your hands, reach them out in front of you, and make really tight fists. So just like you're squeezing something really valuable between the palms of your hands, reach the arms up towards the sky, and then flick. So you should hear an audible flick, just like you're flicking as hard as you can, squeeze into a tight fist, flick, squeeze, flick, squeeze, flick. Okay, we're gonna do this really fast for about 30 seconds. So squeeze as tight as you can, flick as hard as you can for 30, 29, 28. I'm not gonna count, let's just do it because counting isn't my thing, but let's just breathe in some way that is sustaining this. And you'll feel right away if you're doing this, properly. Right now, I'm already feeling quite a big burn in my forearms, and I do this almost every single day, so chances are you are too. So we'll go just for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Great. Whew. All right, so come right away back onto your hands and knees. We're going to strengthen the wrists a little bit more. So take your shoulders a little bit behind your wrists so there's not as much body weight onto the wrists. And then what we're going to do now is press into the finger pads, so the things that are just on the opposite sides of your nails, and then lift the heel of your hand away from the mat. So the heel is this part. So lean back a little bit, press into the fingertips, lift the heel, drop it down. So notice when I'm doing this, my fingers aren't collapsing in towards this really awkward hyperextension shape, but instead, I'm really pressing into them, using the muscles to keep them firm as the heels lift. And drop it down. Do that for 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, release. Great. So now what we're going to do is we're going to keep the finger pads rooting up towards the ground and the knuckle pads. All that's going to lift is the heel of the hand. So a little bit different than the last time. It might take you a little bit to figure these two out, but over time these are great ones to work on. So if you need to pause the video, replay it, take a closer look, and do that, because these are really important. So my shoulders are going to be just a little bit behind my wrist, and this is so that there's not as much body weight. But once you get stronger, you can shift the shoulders past or above the wrists. But for now, start a little bit behind. So finger pads, knuckle pads, rooting into the ground, lift the heels. Lower, lift, lower, lift, lower, lift, lower. Let's go for 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's release. So I'm feeling pretty tired off that. Take a step back on your heels, grab the wrists, just roll them out a few times. If you can figure out the other way, go the other way. Perfect. So now take your hands into tight fists. It's going to feel nice, I promise. Just like you're flexing at the gym, take your hands out. Bring your wrists kind of like they're curling and doing a wrist curl. And what's important here is that we keep the fingers squeezing really tightly together. And as we do this, the wrists stay curling in and we start to reach the arms out towards the sides. Okay, open the fingers nice and wide. Draw them all the way in, make a really tight fist. Draw the wrists in towards each other, flex, and then reach the arms all the way back up. Open the fingers, come back towards center, squeeze, curl in, all the way up. Do that 2 more times. So you should feel a pretty nice pull all along your forearm. Maybe even, pretty much just your forearm, I would say. And release back down. Perfect. So now come back onto hands and knees. Right away, grip the mat, press into all the knuckle pads and fingertips, and notice the strength you have right now. So when we warm up, we're able to, engage more. So now what's going to happen is a little movement in the shoulders between protraction and retraction. So from a neutral spine, I want you to think about allowing your arms to stay straight. But at the same time as your arms are staying straight, you're trying to kind of wrap the elbows back just a little bit. Doesn't need to be, this is kind of an exaggeration. So this would be out, this would be in. So do that for yourself a few times. Out, in, out, in. And then when the arms are towards straight, elbows are kind of facing towards the back of the space. Keep the arms straight. Let the shoulders sink in towards each other as the chest sinks through the arms. Retraction. As you exhale, press the mat away as hard as you can. Round through the center of your heart. Protraction. Inhale, drop the shoulders down. Look at your arms. Make sure they are not bending. Then exhale, protract the shoulders, round the upper spine. Inhale, retract. Exhale, protract. Let's do that 3 more times. Inhale, retract. Exhale, protract. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. And exhale. Great. So something good to keep in mind, anytime you're doing any sort of a pose where your hands have contact with the ground, we want to keep protraction. So protraction for the most part. So protraction is the shape, not the shape, but the movement where the shoulders are pressing all the way up. So you feel the upper back round here. The arms are strong and straight. We're feeling the shoulder blades spreading away from each other. Right? So it's the same motion. If you were to push as hard as you can, protraction, right? Retraction, squeeze together, protraction. So when in doubt, when your hands are on the ground, protract the shoulders. The more comfortable you get with this, you kind of figure out, this naturally. So protract the shoulders. So at first retract them. I usually find it easier to feel protraction in this way. So retract, disengage. Feel this passiveness of this pose. And as you exhale, press around the upper spine, protract. Keep the protraction. Step the right foot towards the back of the mat. Keep ripping through the fingertips and knuckle pads. Keep drawing the right toes in. Feel a nice stretch through the back of the right calf. Slowly step the left foot back. High plank pose. So I want you to feel in this pose right away. You're pressing into the ground as hard as you can. Essentially, the fingers are spreading wide. Make sure the index knuckle is not lifting. Keep your gaze down in a neutral position. And then feel like your hips are level with the shoulders. So a lot of the time what you'll see in this pose is the hips are kind of dropped down like this. You'll feel a little bit of uncomfortable feeling in the lower back unless you're super, super flexible. But even so, we don't want to be in this position unless we're consciously trying to do it. Right? So from here, if you're taking a look at me, kind of checking with yourself, you want to lift the hips. You feel the front of the body turn on as they level up with the shoulders. Even if you're a little bit too high, you're going to start to feel, a lot of engagement here anyway. So I'd rather you be up here than lower down here. And over time, you're going to find what it feels like to be in your perfect plank. So take a moment right here. Just feel it out. Keep squeezing the inner thighs together, just like you're hugging a block or another object in between your legs. And drop the knees towards the mat. Take some pressure off the wrists. So this plank pose, is one that is one of the most foundational poses. We do it all the time in yoga and in other types of movements depending on what you do. So it's a really important thing to really practice and firm up. So I'm going to make a whole other video later on chaturanga, which is our low plank pose. But for today, we're going to focus a few more times on our high plank, how to feel strong in high plank, and then go from there. Take your hands back towards the mat, same thing as before. Protract your shoulders. Step your right foot back. Step your left foot back. Plank pose. So we're going to hold this one for a little bit longer, and I want you to notice and see right away, even right now, notice if the index knuckle, so the pointer finger, that knuckle is starting to get light. If it is, press it back into the mat. I know it's hard. If the shoulders are starting to come together, you're starting to get out of your strength a little bit. I know it's hard. Press the mat away. Lift the hips up level with the shoulders. We're just going to be here for a few more breaths. Slow inhales. Slow exhales. Slow inhale. And slow exhale. Last one, inhale. And exhale, drop the knees down towards the mat. So all the way back on the heels. And take a moment to roll out the wrists. So we're going to do our plank pose one more time. If you're getting a little bit tired, feel free to take it onto the knees. But if you take it onto the knees, still be strong for the shoulders. So maybe let's start on the knees with plank, just so you know your options, right? When you're working through a yoga class, you're doing, maybe tons and tons and tons of lowering down through our plank into our low plank and stuff like that. Can get a little bit tiring. So the knees is always an option. But when you're on the knees, you don't want to feel a pose like this. I see this a lot as well. This is something that's super lazy, super disengaged, and it's not good for really anything at all. So, you want to stay out of this position as much as possible. So from your tabletop position, hands and knees, take a moment, spread the fingers wide, protracting the shoulders, walk the knees back a few steps, right? So if you walk the knees back a few steps, right away, the natural tendency will be to disengage the core, but instead, draw the belly in, feel the front of your body curl up, protract the shoulders. So this is our modified plank pose, right? Although it doesn't look like much is happening, I can still feel quite a lot going on in my shoulders and my core. From here, tuck your toes, and if you're in the proper position, all you got to do is press the heels towards the back of the room, the knees lift, and you're right in a perfectly, or close to perfectly aligned plank pose. We're going to hold this one for a little bit longer. Let's focus on those key points, digging that index knuckle in towards the ground, pressing the mat away, feeling the shoulders spreading apart, squeezing an object between your thighs. Send the heels towards the back of the room. Keep your gaze in a comfortable position. It's here for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Drop the knees down. Sit back on your heels. And take a moment, bind the arms behind the back, squeeze the shoulder blades together, hold them down your back. Broaden a little bit through the chest. Release the shoulders. Just take a few rolls in either direction. You can get the whole shoulders involved here if you want, or just the wrists. I like to get everything involved. And lean over to one side. Send the legs long out in front of you. Quick moment here, come onto your back. So as you arrive on your back, bring your heels close enough in that you can maybe even touch them with your fingertips, but just intend them towards that space. Take them about the width of your hips. Take the palms beside your body. Press into the palms of your hands. Press into the heels. Start to lift your hips away from the ground. Feel the front of the thighs get a nice little stretch here, the front of the legs. And then press into the palms of your hands to get a little bit more space, maybe walking the shoulder blades together, interlacing the hands underneath your back, puffing up through the center of the heart. So to get nice and strong in this pose, I want you to think about energetically taking your heels, they're not going to move, but pulling them back towards your fingers. So just that key action there is going to firm up the front and the back of the legs a lot more. Take another deep breath in here. And a really nice release for the wrists. Keep your hands interlaced, but keep a loose interlace so they're not squeezing tight together. And your pinky fingers, point them both towards the front of your mat with the fingertips touching. Keep all the rest of the fingers in a really loose grip. And then lower your bum all the way onto the fingers. And feel a nice release. So it's possible this doesn't feel good. If that's the case, try to adjust it a little bit. And if it just doesn't feel good, just come off your hands, lie down. If you feel like you want a little bit more sensation, straighten both your legs. Keep the hands underneath. Relax here. Put a bend into both of your knees. Take your feet on the ground, press into the feet, lift the hips up, remove the hands, drop the hips all the way back down. Reach your right arm up, roll over to the right side of your body. Take a few moments here to just take that in. Start to press yourself all the way up into a seated position. Roll the shoulders out a few more times. So everything that we went through today is not like you're going to do it one time and it's going to stick. Just like anything, you got to practice it over and over and over again. Personally, when I first started practicing yoga, Wrists for me were a huge thing. It was always really painful in the wrist. Doing these things every single day, it only takes a couple minutes, 5 minutes max, 10 minutes even. If you want to really, the more you put in, usually the more you get out kind of thing. But really every single day do these things, you're going to see a big significance in improvement in your wrist health, your shoulders, your planks, anything you're doing on the arms. It's going to be a lot easier by doing these types of things. There's more, but this is where we start. Thank you for taking the time to view this video. Namaste.